arrogant, throwing fits, ripping shit, tearing it, imperative. Then I'm killing this mic no matter where I live. These derelict rappers acting the fool, this embarrassing is flagrant. That's the nature of this entertainment, and we can't even change it. Guilty before arraignment, now the system tainted. But when we speak, they all laugh at us, and y'all wonder why I'm lacking trust. Try to fight a giant with attorneys that can back them up. That's church versus science, both sides start acting up. I'm late on my assignment, hopping up a mile high, climbing, obviously never silent. New alignment, I'm defiant, can I describe it? Used to describe it as a young graffiti artist. Before the beard, I always got carded. At every bar, even though my bar's been the hardest. The scars on my face said I ain't always been the smartest, but I'll show you where my heart is. I said I'll show you where my heart is. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeves, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, I can show you where my...
The type of guy that would ride with the breeze. I'm higher than most people, I'm cold and icicle freeze. I'm liking to Mike Tyson, I'm a bison, a beast. I'm hot like Jamaica, like right by the beach. My pops is from a spot where they're fighting for peace. 8 years old, out there watching people fight in the streets. All these sirens only make the violence increase. Yeah, we're still not loving police. It's that bright young American, nice, dumb, arrogant. Tight on a mic, but he might need a therapist. Heart full of kerosene, head full of fairy tales. Said that you're my homie, you don't know me, but I know you very well. Roll back on some West Coast shit. This whole track is wetter than your dress code kiss. About to hit the track, running on some retro fit. Against all it, I guess so, bitch, now let's go.
I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeves, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody...
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Tuesday evening with your hosts, the wonderful Sports Nonsense and Whiskey podcast, fellas. Pinky, my guy, it's Tuesday. How you doing, dude?
Thank God it's Tuesday. Yeah, I need another one of that. It's a long day.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. How you doing, my guy? How you doing?
Well, I'm getting through a Tuesday. I'm getting through it. So,
okay.
Tomorrow is Wednesday, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, we're there. I got you. All right. Robert will not be joining us this evening. He had some things that he had to take care of, and we're all about that family and self-care and making sure that that is priority number one. So
we miss you, Robert. We miss you,
buddy. And we told him we'll hold him down. No big deal. Do what you got to do, and we'll see you next week. So if you want to chat at Robert, all you got to do is say some nonsensical comic book or Star Wars thing on the Facebook page, and he will respond quickly, I assure you. So, if you miss him enough, do that, and you'll hear from him. Other than that, I will say, starting off here, Pinky, wife and I have finished. My head just totally went blank. I wanted to say Game of Thrones, House of Dragons.
Okay.
We have now finished that. We have watched episode 1 of season 4 of The Boys, moving into that, and we will probably get through that even quicker because we both love The Boys. And this House of Dragons kind of took us a while because it was very similar to season 6 and 7 of Game of Thrones, where they just didn't really, the storytelling, the way they were portraying the characters, just didn't give you a feeling like you had to know what was happening next. Like, there is an epic battle going on in House of Dragons. And they're making it sound like it's just a battle between two random people for the throne. Not a brother and sister. Not a house divided. Like, that part of the story really seems to get lost in what they're doing. And then on top of it, you don't necessarily care about the characters. Like, there's all these stories that could have been, like, truly, like, fleshed out within and seen from behind or done to give the characters a little bit more value, and they weren't. So, I mean, we all know what's coming, right? Like, none of this seems like it's going to be very surprising for the next season. I feel like they could have done this way more interesting, considering the fact of how epic what's going on right now is for what we've already seen, right? Like, this is what sets up all of Game of Thrones. And it feels like it's just another story. Am I wrong?
I haven't seen it. And when I hear everybody talk about it, it's moved farther down the list of things I need to watch because of what people have said about it. So I'll get to it eventually, but it's not it's not high on the list.
The way you feel about Lord of the Rings and the way they're doing the new stories with Amazon, those 2 seasons, I feel like you're going to feel very similar to House of Dragons.
Well, I'm rewatching Lord of the Rings season 1 to see, was I just being too hard on it, before season 2. And again, I like to just run through it. I don't like to have to wait. So I haven't started. I want to start the Agatha Harkness show on Disney. They said it's actually a pretty cool show for Halloween time. And I'm like, nope, I'll wait till it's all out.
We're going to do The Boys. Then we're going to do Loki because we know Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be coming to Disney Plus here soon. So we got to get Loki in, and then we'll watch Deadpool, Wolverine. And then we'll go to Lord of the Rings, and then we've got some other things on the list. But that's kind of where we line up.
Was very enjoyable. It was good.
Loki season 1 is arguably my favorite thing Marvel's done. Just the whole way that was set out, the storytelling, the acting, everything. I really enjoyed it, and so did my wife. So we're excited for that. But we got to get through The Boys first, and then we'll move on to that. So that's where we're at. But yeah, I hope I didn't necessarily spoil anything for you with House of Dragons. I felt I kept it fairly generic. Nothing you haven't heard already, I feel like.
No, we're cool, man.
All right.
I've heard quite a bit. Okay, October 26th is when Deadpool hits Disney Plus.
Right.
You got a little bit
coming up, but we got time based on the order we're trying to get through, and I think we'll be good. So that's the game plan right now. But yeah, House of Dragons, like dragons, badass, love it. Like, can't get enough of dragons. I've always been a fan of dragons ever since I was a little kid. But the storytelling feels like it's very surface level.
Yeah, I can't even comment, man. But we'll
get
there.
To the point, it feels so surface level, Pinky, that I'm like, man, I need to go back and watch some good Game of Thrones. Where I think it was season 3, end of season 3, beginning of season 4, I believe, when Arya ended up with the man of the man of no faces, or the man of many. Drawing a blank now, but she ends up over in drawing a blank down the city now too, but across the sea, and she starts learning how to be a man with no face.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, as far as
I think that's season 4. I think, but don't hold me to that.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So that was like, and then when she first comes back to Westeros and just starts laying waste to everything, reverse red wedding and everything. Like, I mean, I think Arya might have been my favorite character. So watching that storyline is pretty epic.
Right. Which again, that's kind of what, the path that she went down, that losing her family, not thinking she's going to make it back, and for her to overcome. It's great. It's a great storyline. It's good story arc for that Arya. So,
Facts.
Let's see. I will say I watched just Twitter highlights from Raw last night. That Monster Mayhem match, Jesus. Oh man, Bronson Reed, Strowman. There's a couple other guys. Like one of the guys went off the top rope into the thing, and the whole ring collapsed.
I saw a picture on Twitter of the aftermath. Pinky, I'm gonna be honest with you, my guy. Like, I'm still not back. Like, it might be until after football season before I truly decide.
As soon as Raw hits Netflix, man, I'm there every Monday night. Especially there won't be football on Monday night after that. So,
well, I mean that's why I say after football season, because right now I got football to watch on Mondays, and I was already kind of wishy-washy on coming back or not, and I haven't really tuned in. They didn't lose me. We all know, like I said it before, they didn't lose me. I needed a break. Like the stories were such that I was very uninterested, and once you get there, it's very easy to then become disinterested altogether. And I was like, I'll just take a little break and come back, and I know things will be fresh eventually. And Pinky will always be there that I can ask some quick questions and get caught up on the things I need to continue on, and we'll be good to go. But I got some football right now.
Trying my best. Well, let's talk some college, or let's talk some baseball. Sorry.
Wait. Before we do baseball, because that will be a bit of a conversation. I think there is some NBA news worth mentioning with training camp starting and the season not too far away from jumping off. Big trade in the NBA that I think there are a lot of fans very split on whether or not this helps one team or the other or both. Now, that trade being basically Karl Anthony Towns for Randall and DiVincenzo. Basically. There's obviously a first-round pick there, and there'll probably be some ancillary pieces by the time it's all truly said and done. At this point, I know it hasn't been finalized, but I don't think
it got finalized today.
Oh, did it? I missed that.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't completely finalized yet.
Yeah, they
when today?
Like 33 minutes ago.
Oh, so very recently. So basically I'm doing all my getting the kids to bed and missed it.
They get the draft rights to James Najee, the Knicks team.
Okay.
Timberwolves get Randall. They get DiVincenzo.
Yep.
They get Bates Diop.
Yep.
And they get a 2025 first-round pick.
First-round pick.
The Hornets get a 2025 second-round pick.
Okay.
A 2026 second-round pick.
Okay.
Daquan Jeffries.
Okay.
Charlie Brown.
Okay.
Darius Washington and $7 million in cash. I don't even know where all those dudes or picks are coming from. It just says they're getting them.
Mostly, probably, if I had to guess, from Minnesota to offset money in contracts. I mean, not Minnesota, New York, to offset money in contracts. Because Karl Anthony Towns was a max deal. Randall and DiVincenzo were not. So my guess is New York. If I had to guess, that's where that stuff would be coming from. And the reason the only reason they're involved is to help offset the cash.
Which is why they get 2 second-round picks for their troubles.
Exactly. So I am under the belief, and I'll give you my bullet ideas here, and then you can counter and give your thoughts here on it. I believe this deal helps New York more, and this is why. Once they acquired Bridges, they were, I don't want to say overloaded, but they had some talent available to expend in that small forward, power forward, shooting guard kind of combo area, whichever way they wanted to go with that. So moving DiVincenzo was kind of an easy choice when you have Hart, when you've got now Bridges, and you've already got Bronson, plus some of the ancillary pieces of guys that can bring off the bench that we saw.
Did they bring Hartenstein back, or did he sign elsewhere?
No, he signed it with OKC. Yeah, but they have Robinson, who was really good for them before his injury. He won't be available to start the season most likely because of his off-season surgery, but he'll be good next to Karl Anthony Towns. Bringing in Karl Anthony Towns allows you to move Randall. So a signing in the offseason, a trade, bringing Bridges over, and then with Cat coming in, it makes DiVincenzo and Randall okay to move on from. I think Cat's better offensively than Randall. I think defensively they're about the same guy, but Randall, I believe, brings you more of that kind of Zach Randolph kind of that Zebo kind of mentality a little bit more. And a little bit more physical than Cat, I think. But injury-wise, they're kind of about the same. They both missed time from injuries and not been around. So I don't think that offsets it. If they're available, they're both really good. On the other side, I don't think it does anything for Minnesota. You're going to run a lot more through Anthony Edwards. That's for damn sure. But you now lose some offensive talent, which I think you did kind of need because you didn't have anybody as offensively polished as Cat and Anthony Edwards. So now you just have Anthony Edwards. I know they're still hoping McDaniels continues to grow, and he looks like he can be a really good player, but he does have some growth still to do, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Gobert, we all know how we feel about Gobert on this podcast. That's the guy they should have traded. They should have kept Cat and traded Gobert to the Knicks. That would feel like more of a smart Knicks move. Instead, they got a really good player in Cat out of it somehow. So I don't think it moves the needle at all for Minnesota. In fact, I think it could even make them slightly worse than they were last year. Because people are like, well, it improves their bench. Their bench was already deep and good. Now they lost a couple guys, so they replaced it with DiVincenzo. Okay. I don't think Randall moves the needle more than Cat. I do think Cat's a better
I think
player.
I think they got two guys that can help score. I think this just moves the ball more to Anthony Edwards.
Absolutely.
Instead of like Cat trying to the one thing that would happen is certain nights Cat would try to be the guy. Other nights Anthony Edwards would be the guy and Cat would be cold.
It did, but you're asking a lot of Anthony Edwards now. A lot. And I think
he wants that smoke though, right?
I know. And that's why we love him, right? Because he talks about it and he backs it up most of the time. So we're all about Anthony Edwards. We love him. But in today's NBA, to ask a superstar to go out there and not really have any other firepower around him, it's not like they got like a specialist 3-and-D guy back or just a hot microwave kind of guy like a Lou Williams or a Jamal Crawford back, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how these pieces fit. Now, I will say this, two things. One, we all know my love for Tim Conley, and Tim Conley I trust. Now, I don't like trusting him with a team that is going against the Nuggets and could knock them out every year, but I think Tim Conley is arguably the best front office man in the league. And in Tim Conley, I trust. So if he thinks this move is going to make this team better, I trust in that until proven otherwise. The other reason I do think this could be a very interesting move is because they drafted a guy who I told you could come in right away and be an offensive threat and could be a solid 3-and-D guy, and that's Shannon out of Illinois. Yeah, and I was really hoping the Nuggets would go after him, and they did not. He could easily start in the backcourt with Anthony Edwards, but they won't. They'll play Mike Conley. Anthony Edwards, Shannon, maybe you play him at small forward and you play Randall at power forward and Gobert at the center, and you don't necessarily lose height or anything there because of Randall and Gobert. And you keep some of that offensive firepower, if you will, in the starting five. I think Shannon's going to be really good. I really do. And so maybe they saw enough from him in the offseason where they're like, we have the offense. People just don't know it yet, and we can move on from Cat because of what we're getting back. We're replacing our bench pieces with a really good guy in DiVincenzo, and we're getting a starting power forward who's an all-star back, basically, all-star caliber talent in Randall. So this, right now, I don't like the move as much for Minnesota. But if Shannon is what I think he is, and that's what they're banking on, and then it proves to be so, and they can run that through, it could work out really well for them. I still do, though, I won't lie, really like the move for New York. I think what they already have there, and you put Cat with that offensive weapons that they have, and Brunson as a running mate as a 2, Bronson being the 1 and Cat being his 2, and then Josh Hart and everybody else that they have that showed us they have some really good depth if they weren't missing 4 of their, top 6 rotational players.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy, the injuries.
The fact
that
they got as far as they did is pretty amazing.
So they kept a lot of that depth. Yes, they let Hartenstein, which is going to be a big piece, but you bring Cat in. Randall wasn't there for that playoff run, but you add Bridges, like I said, who we all know is really damn good. Not quite your 1A top flight superstar talent, but he's probably in that next he's floating around in that next level category kind of thing. So they got pieces, and it's going to look really good for them, especially with the way Boston continues to load. Philly will still be good if they're healthy. I expect Miami to be better if they're healthy, but that's a big question now because they're getting older. Milwaukee, I mean, come on. They've still got Dame, and they've still got Giannis and those pieces. Indy should be a little bit better, I would think, just with their growth from the young talent they have. Like, there's some interesting things in the East that could be potential there, and I think New York got a little bit better, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm not thinking about this as it's just a straight trade for New York got better. It's what they did in the offseason and then what this trade does to move forward. So
while we're talking NBA real quick, just plant the seed to the wife. The boys are going to a game.
Yeah, I like that.
We'll
make something happen. We'll make
one
of the guys' nights out are always off.
Yeah, we'll get Robert, me, and Pinky Jr. and you, and we'll go.
I like that. So, yeah, kind of a big trade because it affects both conferences, going from the West and the East trade. So I like that, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. You know, we saw some trades last year that couldn't get going. Dame with Milwaukee never quite looked right all year. So, and to do this right before the season starts, luckily they've got training camp. But even that's not a lot of time to really work on and move through things. So we'll be very interested to see how both teams are able to integrate those pieces over the first couple months.
And that's
we all know the NBA doesn't start until Christmas, right? I mean, that's kind of the running joke. But there is the in-season tournament now that I think everybody agrees was not awful. I like it more than most,
but I think it was fun.
Right, fun. So there's a little bit more reason for the beginning of the season to matter and guys to take it a little bit more serious and start the season a little bit quicker. So that's why it'll be fun, and we'll get a pretty good idea right away of how these things start looking.
I mean, there'll be the teams that are like, yeah, we don't care, and then teams are like, oh, no, we want to win that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. All right. Moving on?
Yeah.
So, another week of college football.
Baseball. Do baseball because football we'll do football.
I always forget. I
know, baseball. But look, we do care now, right? I mean, the playoffs, we do care now.
I was happy and sad that my Braves made it because I know they don't really have a really great shot with all the injuries they've got. I don't see them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them beating. They're missing Strider. Now Chris Sale is out for the wild card round because of back spasms.
If they make it past the Padres by some miracle, they play the Dodgers. I don't think they can beat the Dodgers. I don't think they can beat the Phillies as well. Like, this isn't the year for the Braves, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. Maybe next year.
It's tough. It's a tough look. So
I did like the ending doubleheader that they played with the Mets. Arguably one of the best games of the season.
The first game.
The first game, yeah.
Yeah.
The first game.
The one that really mattered for both teams because the winner automatically got into the playoffs.
I mean, it's 3-0 Braves. All of a sudden the Mets come out and score 6 after the Braves did not let their rookie pitcher, who was pitching a beautiful game, they pulled him.
Yeah, man.
And as soon as they pull him, the Mets score 6 runs.
Those decisions can work out really well sometimes and really bad others. It's crazy.
And then the Braves, it was 6-3, and somehow the Braves come back, make it 7-6, and then the Mets hit a 2-run homer to take the lead, and that's all she wrote. Great game, a lot of fun. And then the Mets were nice. They put in pretty much everybody else and didn't play real hard and let the Braves win that one.
And then Arizona got left out. Yeah.
Keeping the Diamondbacks at home, right?
All right. So let's run through this then. Well, quick thoughts. I think we both know not to be mean, but I have a feeling I've followed a little bit closer throughout the course of the season than you have. And
yeah,
I might have
that's fair.
Might have a slightly better idea about some of these teams than you, but I definitely don't follow as close as like a regular, if you will. Definitely more of a casual, if you will, from the sense of watching and paying attention, especially this season with everything else going on. It's hard to pay attention to all sports all the time. But let's run through this and get your kind of thoughts. I'll give some, and we'll end up at the World Series with who we think will get there and who we want to potentially see get there if we had our dream kind of matchup this year, and then we'll move forward. So, starting with the NL, since you've already been talking about the Braves and kind of what they're looking at, their injuries, the wild card round, they're playing the Padres. Who do you think wins that series?
Let me start with one thing. I think the MLB playoffs are a fucking joke. I hate the best of 3 for the wild card, and I hate the best of 5 for the NLDS
for the divisional round.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate it. That did like. I don't like that at all, because if a team is hot, if one of the teams, especially for the NLDS, you've got 2 teams that are taking a week and a half off, and then they have to come and play, and now you expect them to play their best baseball, but if they lose 2 games early, they win one, then they lose another one, then they're done. Like, I don't like it. I like best of 7, and I just think, what's wrong with more baseball?
Well, here's the problem.
I know the problem, it's the weather, but
yes, that is unfortunately the problem. Is Mother Nature says
then shut
you're
it
not
down.
playing after October. Like, for the most part, it's a pretty good rule.
Shut it down from 162, lower it down a little bit, and give us 7 games, because I feel like that really gives us the best teams. We've seen it all the time. Like, the Rockies won series against teams this season, and they're awful.
Right.
So.
Right.
Like,
I don't disagree with you. I have flip-flopped in baseball. I used to want to see this many teams in with 7-game series for all 3 rounds leading into the World Series. Obviously, so it'd be 4 rounds total for whoever got all the way through. Wild card, divisional, championship, and then World Series.
Right.
I'd like to see 7 all the way through. I have now flip-flopped, and I would actually like them to go back. I'd like to see him take a step back from the number of teams that get in, and not
it's
have
only 6.
I know.
I feel like that's still.
I'd like to go back.
Much.
I would like to go back to, let's do 4 divisions. Each divisional winner gets in, no wild cards, and this is why. Hear me out. The regular season does mean something in baseball, and it should. So, if you're gonna keep the regular season at 162, then I like 4 playoff teams. The regular season should matter. It's the whole attrition kind of thing and getting all the way through. You've got a chance to prove you're good or bad. Let that play out, and then you pick the 4 best teams from each side and play it out. Which I would actually prefer, so that's because it's 162, and they basically said they're never going to change that, right? That's kind of their stance right now. So if that's the case, I'd like to see it go back to 4. That'll never happen. What I'd like to see, though, Pinky, is exactly what you've said. 7 games it up all over the place. Drop it down to 142 and start the playoffs in September, the beginning of September, rather than the beginning of October. And you'd have 2 months of playoff baseball, basically, with 7-game series for each one. And I think that would be a lot more fun to watch.
How about we just change the wild card to 5, best of 5, and keep the NLDS at best of 7? I don't think that's asking a whole lot. You know,
it's just the time frame, man. You can't do it in the time frame being asked. There's literally not enough days.
I think they could do it. They could do
it. You'd be creeping in November. And then you get your Derek Jeter Mr. November moment, but like they really don't want to go into November because you start playing 30-degree baseball and it's snow baseball. Like, it's just not good. It's just not good. You can do it, but it's not like football where it's like, this is still cool. No, baseball, cold weather, not nearly as good.
Well,
so here we go. Let's run through this.
Okay? I mean, the Mets won already today.
Hang on. Braves.
Oh, I thought we were.
Who do you think wins that series?
I think the Padres will win that series.
I agree. Okay, Padres move on.
I think the Braves have done what they could do to get the wild card, and they're done.
Unfortunately, next year, if they can stay healthy, the amount of talent on that team, crazy and could be really scary. But they've, like Piki said, a lot of injuries for the Braves, unfortunately. I agree. Padres move on. They face the Dodgers. NL West rivalry, that could be fun. Now, Mets, Brewers. Who do you think wins that series? And yes, like you said, the Mets did already win game 1.
Yeah, the Mets. I mean, the Mets are in the driver's seat now, being up 1-0.
I think the Mets are kind of hot also. So I like the Mets to win that series as well. They play the Phillies, NL East rivalry. So that would be kind of fun.
Right.
Pick between those two. Phillies, Mets. Who do you like?
I like the Phillies.
I don't think the Mets are playing hot enough baseball. I think the Phillies can take a little break. They're a veteran team. They got a solid rotation, and
the Phillies have been here the last couple of years.
Yes.
Like, this is not like the moment's not going to be too much for them. They've been there, and I think the Mets over the last, I think they'll win. They'll take that emotion. I think they might be, and it's so weird to think of guys like, it could go one of two ways. Either A, they've still got more to give, or B, they've just run out and they just get completely demolished, right? Because you ride that emotion, and sometimes you can keep it going, and sometimes it drains you to you don't have anything.
Absolutely, and like you said, and that's a great point, which was I was going to say tag onto or elaborate onto what I was already thinking. When you said they've been here before, you're right. And with them being a veteran team and being here before, they've had a week, depending, maybe even a little bit longer off, depending on if it goes all 3 games or not in that wild card round. Even if they came out flat game 1 and lost, this isn't a team that would panic or be like, oh no, they wouldn't get tight. Like, they'd still be fine because they understand it's a series, right? They understand that they could win the next 3 and it would be over just like that. And it wouldn't matter. So I like the Phillies with you to advance to the NLCS. Padres, Dodgers, who do you like there?
I mean, I feel like the Dodgers have to make it all the way. They have to. But if there's anybody playing with house money, it's the Padres. At one point in the first half of the season, the Padres were looking awful and atrocious.
Yeah.
And they were looking like out of that.
They were close to the playoffs for sure.
And now they're there, and it's a division rival. If someone's going to spoil the party, it would be the Padres. But I can't bet against Ohtani, man. I just can't. Yeah. I can't bet against Ohtani. And let's be honest, when a guy does something historic like a 50-50, the possibility of him pitching in the playoffs, we need to have them in the World Series.
I don't even care if it's like 1,000,000% chance that he pitches. The fact that it's even a chance after what he did batting this year is just awesome.
And for some reason, I don't like a lot of Rockies fans because, again, previously I rooted for the Rockies. A lot of people have that hatred.
Previously, back in the day, I rooted for the Rockies.
I just don't have hatred for the Dodgers. I don't.
I
feel bad. I feel like the Dodgers are like the Braves of the 90s, where they're there all the time, but they only got that one World Series. I want Ohtani to get a ring.
Well, here's the other thing. As Rockies fans, which we are, but we won't promote because we feel like the ownership only there to try and bankroll, not actually, build a winner. I think any Rockies fan who says they have a true divisional hatred for, or the Rockies have a rivalry and you dislike somebody in the division, you're making shit up. The Rockies have never been good enough in baseball or that division as a whole to say that you have a true rival. A rivalry means it is back and forth.
I feel like we have a semi-rivalry with the Diamondbacks, but a lot of times neither one of us are very good that it doesn't matter.
I mean, if you want to say because they're both just bad, okay, I could kind of give you that one. But you understand what I'm saying, right?
Right.
There's just also the Rockies are so new within the NL West. I mean, they're not an old
we're
franchise.
talking 30 years now.
But that's within baseball. That's not old, right? because of baseball being what it is. That's not old per se. And they've never won. Like, I know they went to the World Series. October was, that's a historic baseball thing, what they did. Losing in an epic fashion was unfortunate because of the 10 days off.
If the Rockies had won the World Series at that point, that would have been a reason to get a Rockies tattoo just for that. Like, these Nuggets tattoos might be out of style in 5 years or so when Joker might be gone or whatever, but I will always have those memories, right? Because they did it. And
they've won a championship. You can wear them on you. Period. End of story. They have one. I don't know if the Rockies will ever do that in our lifetime because I don't see the Monforts ever selling the team. So with that being said, wrapping back around to what we're talking about, I could care less which one of these teams wins as far as being a Rockies fan and rivalries and whatnot. I like the Ohtani story a lot. And I've been talking this dude up as the best talent baseball has seen with 9 own eyes. With a lot of generations.
With the World Series ring, it just adds more to that resume.
There's also this underlying idea that they're crazy loaded in talent, and people kind of seem to forget that. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts. Kershaw is still there. What you get from him, we don't know, but he is an all-time great pitcher, and he could come out and give you an all-time great performance out of nowhere.
Doesn't Kershaw suck in the playoffs, though? Is it Kershaw that does, or?
He did kind of was a knock against him. That's no longer a story. They won the World Series. He pitched really well through that. I know it was the COVID World Series and whatnot, but he still pitched well. So he's kind of brushed that off a little bit. Similar to a la Kirk Cousins can't play well in primetime games.
Do they still have wait, where's Trey Turner? Is he in Philly?
Nationals.
No, he came from the Nationals.
I mean, not the
Nationals.
Dodgers. The Phillies. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That sounds right. Yeah.
But I mean, Freeman's good. Mookie Betts is great. Ohtani's amazing. That's a loaded team. I think they will beat the Phillies in the championship round. I want it to be a good series, though. I think it'll go 6 or 7.
I mean, it'd be pretty cool if there was, a game 7 and then you get a superstar in Ohtani doing something epic with a big game 7 or something. That would be just cool. That storyline. And the fact that this is his first chance to finally play in the postseason, and he did what he did this season, and he did it while he's rehabbing and not pitching. Like, it's just so wild that I want to see something.
And
really
to see him come in and close. Well, I don't know how that works. How does that work if you're batting, so you're in the lineup? Can they move you to pitcher?
Yeah, you just keep your position within the batting order.
Okay.
Now,
they'd have to replace him in the outfield then.
He's a DH, so he's not technically playing the field. He's played the field in certain situations so they could keep him pitching. So if he came in to pitch, and if it was like situational, and they wanted him to pitch to like one guy, not the next, and then the guy after that, you can put him in the field and then bring him back onto the mound. But if you take him off the field, he cannot come back onto the field again.
Okay.
I don't know if he can still hit.
So could you go DH to pitcher to the field?
Yes. But then I don't know what happens as far as like if they take you off the field, then I don't know if you could still DH. I think he would be completely out at that point. I think. I don't. That one I'm unsure of, Pinky. So I don't quite. We would need a much more baseball savant than I.
You need to talk to your cousin. I'm sure he knows.
Yeah, he would. I could ask him.
Ask him. He knows. All right.
So we both have the Dodgers in the World Series. AL side, Pinky. AL side. Let's start with the game that happened earlier today. KC and
they both played.
Baltimore Orioles. I know, but it just finished here. That was the later afternoon game.
So, man, I kind of like both teams because they're both teams that are. I have a lot of family in KC. I actually have baby pictures when I'm like a fat little blonde-headed German kid with a Royals jersey on. So I do have a little bit of affinity for the Royals. Bobby Witt Jr. is really cool. I like that guy a lot. But Baltimore also, like, for a team that like those guys in Baltimore don't care. and the last 2-3 years they've been a really good team.
Dude, they are young and talented dudes that have proved their time. I mean,
I feel like we win.
Adley Rauschman, their catcher, and then
Jackson Holiday and
not Jackson Holiday, although he's great. He came back, number 1 overall pick. He started really bad, then they went back down, then he came back up. He's on the roster. He's looking better. But the guy who's going to finish, I think he'll finish in the top 5 in the AL MVP voting. Give me just a moment. I will have his name for you. But
so I feel like
that's a
good story. That's a good story as well. So I feel like we win regardless of who wins this game. The Royals won 1-0.
1-0 today. Yep.
So they're up 1, which again, I feel like when you win that first wild card game, you were in the driver's seat, man. Because
Gunnar Henderson,
yeah,
crazy good young talent as well. So yeah,
Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah, I'm with you. I grew up with my family is from Nebraska, right? So there's no pro team. So the kind of general rule of thumb is pick whoever the hell you want. Nobody's going to argue with you. My grandfather had some ties to the New York area and was always a Yankees fan. So my dad kind of grew up liking the Yankees, but being regional, they also always kind of rooted for KC. So I've never been a evil Empire Yankees hater because of that, but I'm not necessarily a Yankees fan. I appreciate the history, and I find myself not rooting against them, I'll say. But I did grow up liking Kansas City, George Brett and the guys.
Brett Saberhagen.
Yeah. So I do have an affinity for both.
Bo Jackson.
Both those areas. And then I grew up a huge Cal Ripken guy. So because
overrated.
Whatever, man. Say what you want. Hall of Famer, regardless of whatever you want to say at this point.
Definitely Hall of Famer, but he's, me, he's overrated in my book.
I don't think I'd ever put him in like the top 5 all-time shortstops. But I do think he was a really good player for a really long time. And I always liked him. So I've always liked the Orioles. So I don't really have a like or dislike for either team to the point where I have a pick.
I just think we win either way, right?
I agree. But because I will make a pick, I will say I think this young talent of the Orioles find a way to get it done. Now they're going to have to win 2 in a row now. But I just have this – I have a feeling they're going to find a way to get it done. So I think Baltimore moves on here. Now, with that being said, the other game was Houston and Detroit. Detroit's your Cinderella story, and I don't even think that does it justice because they should be nowhere near the playoffs or sniffing it by all accounts when the season started and the way they were projected to go. So the fact that they're in it, good for them. Definitely a season early probably for many projections that would have even possibly had them here. I think Houston rolls.
But this is where the wild card comes into play, man. Like
I know.
You know, you just get hot at the right time and you can make it in.
It's true. You're absolutely right. I still would pick Houston to win that series, though, if I'm going to have to pick.
But they're in a hole now, too. They got to go. They got to win 2.
I know. They got to win 2 in a row as well. I get it. So, Detroit and Kansas City now are basically playing with house money because of that. But I do like Baltimore and Houston to advance. Now, that gets tricky because the next round you got New York or KC or Baltimore. Are you taking New York to win that series regardless of who it is?
New York always lets us down. They always let us down.
It's been a little while since they've won one, right? Judge hasn't been there, and if he's going to be a Yankee all-time great, he's got to get at least one. That's kind of the general rule of thumb as a Yankee. Juan Soto is there now. Garrett Cole is there. Might be the best pitcher in baseball. So, I mean, I think the Yankees advance, regardless of who they play. I think it'll be a fun series. I think, personally, Baltimore would give them a better series than Kansas City. Just based on matchups and familiarity, both being in the AL East and things of that nature. But I think either way, New York would advance, regardless of who they play.
Yeah. I think the Orioles go and they beat the Yankees. If they can win 2 games straight.
2 games against Kansas City. Okay, I like it. I like you sticking your neck out there a little bit. I like that, Peaky.
Because again, I think you're playing with house money at that point.
You are. I agree. Houston or Detroit against Cleveland.
I'll be honest. I don't know how the Guardians are this good. I don't pay attention enough to see them as the second seed. I don't even know. I can't name
bullpen.
I can't name any of their players.
Yeah,
I can't name any of them.
Just solid dudes. Jose Ramirez is still a really good all-star. But outside of that, yeah, you probably, Naylor is still there, I believe. I think Naylor's with Cleveland.
Yeah, I have no. I could probably name at least. Well, I can't name anybody on the Tigers, but I can name players on most of the teams. I can't name anybody on the Guardians. I'm not tied in that much to know anything about.
Yeah, Naylor's still with Cleveland. Yeah, I think they've got the best probably bullpen right now. Maybe the best closer. I'm going to draw a blank on his name. Clace might be the best closer in the majors this year. So that and just a solid lineup of hitters. Not necessarily Jose Ramirez is really good, but outside of that, just solid dudes.
Did you pick Houston to go get through Detroit?
I did, and I also think Houston would beat Cleveland. With for the same reason you like Philly in a lot of situations, right? With their
Houston's been here. What's Houston been like 6 years?
Dude. Yeah, they've got the World Series. They've been through the ringer too, and come out the other side with the whole scandal, and then winning the World Series after it. I like them to. Yeah, now granted they're in a hole, right? They got to win 2 here in a row to make this happen. But I believe they win that first round still. I think they beat Cleveland. I think they are in the ALCS against New York. And why I love that, baseball is really about the storylines, right? I mean, that really drives baseball a lot of times. New York feels they got screwed by Houston that year of the scandal in the trash cans.
Right.
And should have been in the World Series and believe they could have won it that year because they were so hot and got screwed by Houston. So that's kind of a nice little storyline there because New York would be the favorite in that situation. Maybe it's just because they're the favorites. Maybe it's just because this is what I want to see. I want to see an Ohtani Judge World Series. Really bad. I want to see it really bad.
Look, there is nothing better for baseball and TV ratings than New York and LA. There is nothing better. Now, I think baseball is one of the few sports that it's really tough for the umpire or the refs to really change the outcome. We talk NFL scripted or NBA scripted or any of that. I feel like when it comes to baseball, there's not a whole lot of interference that maybe the ump can call
the strike zone a little shady for one team. Yeah, but then it's usually a new guy behind the plate for the next game, right? They don't usually keep the same guy back there.
Right. So it's a little bit tougher for that to happen and have that conspiracy. But I think baseball wants that to happen. Dodgers, Yankees.
More so than any time in recent memory because of the star power.
What was that last one that was really was it Mets Yankees that was the last major World Series to have the ratings and viewership and all that? The Subway Series.
I mean, that was crazy. That was a long time ago though, dude. That was long. There's been some other really good World Series since then.
Really good, but I'm just talking about from a media perspective.
The San Francisco ones were pretty good because how they were going every other year. What was it? Every odd year they were
them and the Cardinals. Series.
Yeah. And the Cardinals are old school baseball, so they draw a national crowd and ratings still.
I think the Cubs series
I was going to say the Cubs. The year the Cubs
media-wise.
Yeah, the year the Cubs won was crazy ratings because the whole country was pulling for them at that point because of everything that was going on.
The 2 World Series that I think I watched the most was the Cubs and the Royals.
Yeah,
I watched those 2 World Series the most just because of who was playing.
So there were some good things. I think this year is interesting for a lot of reasons, but I think baseball has a way of not giving you what you want very often. It is just such a crazy sport, and it is more streaky And if your team gets hot or cold at the wrong or right times, more so than any other sport, even though you play a series, I feel like the best team does not always win more often than not compared to any other sport that plays a series. So it'll be interesting to see. Pinky and I are kind of pulling for our hearts and our lack of any dog in the fight, if you will, to see that star power of Judge
I'd
Ohtani.
love for the Braves to go all the way, but it's just not happening.
Yeah. So, if we're wrong, we're wrong. But I think that would be epic, and I would love to see that spotlight with what is. I don't think you can even argue the two best players in baseball in Judge and Ohtani. So
that's not an argument.
And the fact that they're in separate leagues in the NL and the AL, and it could play out to the point where they could see each other's teams in the World Series makes it even that much better. Because, you get a lot of sports where the two best players are in the same conference and they're playing in the second round or the conference finals rather than the finals.
Judge only got to 58, man.
What?
He only had 58 homers to finish the season. I really wanted him to get 60.
Yeah.
But he did bat 322, though, which is for this era and the home run guys of this era.
Well, what everybody's like, he's a power hitter. No, he's a hitter. Like a crazy good hitter. Like Ohtani.
to hit 322.
What did Ohtani finish? Did he finish at 302, 304? I think he finished above 300 as well. I remember thinking he finished Griffey line, which would be 302, I think.
310.
310. Nice.
With 54 and 130 ribbies.
And 58 stolen bases, 57 stolen bases. I mean,
59.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just crazy.
Man, if he'd had 60, man.
Just crazy. So, really fun to watch.
You got your AL MVP and your NL MVP. And if we can get them to come together, the ratings for this series would be off the charts, man.
Let's be honest. At the beginning of the season, most people thought on paper those were probably the two best teams to begin with anyways. And Let's not forget the Yankees have a lot of star power too. I mean, Juan Soto is there, who had an insane year all by himself.
Yeah, Juan Soto's probably...
He had 40 home run, 44, I think.
He probably could have been considered for AL MVP if it weren't for Judge.
Yeah, exactly. He had an insane year as well. We're not even talking about him.
Because he went 288 and 41 homers.
Yeah,
109 RBI. So in a normal outlook, if you remove Judge from the equation, you're like, man, he had a really good year.
Yeah,
but
yeah. And then they've still got
Judge
Stanton
right there with you, like.
Yeah, and they've still got Stan. They've got Garrett Cole. They've got some other pieces. Like, they're not deprived of talent either, right? So, on paper, I think a lot of people said that could be your World Series. I think we're getting to the playoffs, and a lot of people see them as the favorites. And then you get the star power story, the East Coast versus West Coast, the old school rivalry of the Brooklyn Dodgers, the New York Yankees, the now newer rivalry of the LA Dodgers and the New York Yankees. It's just a lot of fun, and it's cool. And I think that would be, from an outside perspective, again, with no dog in the fight, that's what I want to see. And I know it's cliche, if you will, but I don't care.
I feel you, dog. All right. So, college football.
That's the baseball. Now we can do the football. Let's do this.
Right. College football. This will be a quick rundown. Look, Alabama might be for real.
Might be. I think we're past the might be scenario, my guy.
I just warming you up. Just warming you up,
dude. I thought they would have a transition season. I didn't think DeBoer would be bad. I thought he'd be fine long term based on what he could do at Washington. If you can do that at Washington, I think you'll be okay at Alabama long term. I thought they'd have a slightly down year though, maybe 2, possibly 3 losses, just because of the transition. I was wrong. I was wrong.
Look, I am not a Jalen Milroe guy. And DeBoer has definitely gotten him to play so much better.
Well, let's talk about Milroe, because we said before the season, we've said it a couple times since, I believe, that he's a Jalen Hurts-esque and kind of almost feels like he's on the same trajectory. Wasn't necessarily a great passer. Looks like he's starting to get better. He didn't have to go to Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma to take that next step. He just stayed at Alabama and let the new head coach come in to take the next step.
He got lucky. I think getting DeBoer, who has had some quarterbacks and helped quarterbacks play well, has helped him. I don't know if he would have seen this same progression.
But that's
he
what
would have gotten a little bit better with Saban. But
Hurts left Alabama and went to Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma, and you saw his passing take the next step, a giant step, really. Milroe, you're seeing that giant step. He just didn't leave Alabama to do it. DeBoer came in to do it. Milroe is looking insanely good. Every week I see improvement. I'm amazed right now.
I don't want him running 16 times. But, I mean, when you're in a game like that, you do what you got to do.
Not just that, dude. He's kind of doing it in a Lamar Jackson-esque way where he doesn't really – he seems to be able to know how to avoid the big hit, and he's a bigger frame than Lamar Jackson, right? He is a Jalen Hurts more frame. But Jalen Hurts doesn't quite have the same ability to avoid the big hit that Lamar Jackson has. So that could be an interesting package.
If Carson Beck does not turn the ball over so many times, this game could have been closer from the beginning versus getting closer at the end. So I'm excited to see a rematch of
the game was not as close as the score made it look, even though it was insanely close and Bama was down at a point, and then a high schooler and Ryan Williams came out and blew the top off the fucking defense again. My God, we get that dude for 2 more years after this, but he's 17, Pinky. That kid is 17.
That may have been
making some legit young.
That was one of the smoother. That was one of the smoother touchdowns you'll ever see.
He is so good. And he's 17. He's a freshman, a true freshman. Insane. But I think Alabama took their foot off the gas in the second half really bad, and it gave Georgia the ability to kind of claw back into it. And Bama had to find that gear again, and then they found it. And Ryan Williams and Jalen Milroe, and they did some work. And Bama's scary good because I think that taught them that you can't take your foot off the gas. And next time that comes up, they'll just hang 54. They'll hang 60. Like, it's going to be bad for somebody.
Did they get moved to number 1?
Yep, they sure did.
They did.
They sure did.
They sure did. So,
I personally think this exposed Beck a little bit in the idea that I never thought he was like the top quarterback. I think he was good, but I don't think he's next level good. I don't mean this in a bad way, and I'm having trouble drawing other comparisons, but I think he's your former Georgia quarterback for everybody that knows who I'm talking about. I think he's your McElroys from Alabama who have these great college careers and look really good in the college game, but just aren't that next level franchise-changing quarterback. So, career backup, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not trying to sound mean. I think he's a solid quarterback. Sure, he can make a lot of good money doing that.
Career backups still make good money, baby.
I just don't think he's this phenomenal talent, first-round talent type of dude. And people have told me I'm crazy, and he's way better than Shedeur Sanders. And look, I think that's one of the fun things about college into the NFL and the draft and that evaluation, and everybody's going to have a different opinion, and we're all going to be right and wrong on some dudes. But I think Beck got exposed a little bit as not quite the generational talent, if you will, that maybe some people were making him out to be. And I think Bama stepped up and was better than people thought maybe they were. And I'm on the Jalen Milroe bandwagon now. I hope there's still room because I'm going to find a way to just hang on now and just get dragged along if I have to. Love the dude. Really like his game. And I think if he continues on this path, Pinky, and we keep seeing some growth and he keeps having some big games and big moments, I do think you could be talking about potentially the first overall pick in the draft.
Well, not this year, but like next year, right?
No, this year, I believe. I think this would be
eligible this year.
Yep, I believe so.
Let me double check that. I don't know if he's eligible, and
I believe this is his 3rd year removed, my good friend. This might even be his senior year, technically. Check me, but I'm pretty sure on that one.
Jalen Milroe is eligible for the 2025 draft.
He's a red shirt, but I think he's technically a senior, but he's got the red shirt, I think. Something along those lines, maybe. But, yeah, so draft eligible. The other two things I want to talk about in college football, Pinky, and if you have other things, please throw them out there. But I'm going to end on Travis Hunter. I'm just going to throw that out there now. I think there's one other name right now that has kind of differentiated themselves out there as in the Heisman conversation. I think it is Milroe, Hunter, and now this guy. And if you've seen his numbers, they're ridiculous. And I'm going to give them to you right now. I had to pull them back up real quick because we were looking at so many other things, so I apologize for the slow play here. His name is Ashton Jeanty. Out of Boise State.
Boise State.
This dude is he's doing things on a football field right now that are straight video game numbers. And that gets thrown around a lot these days, I feel like, and it's kind of lost some of its luster. But we played 4 games. 4 games, okay? Let me just give these flat out. In 4 games right now, Pinky, he has had 82 carries. So basically 20 carries.
20 a game.
Normal, average, maybe even light work in some situations for a running back, right? He's got 845 yards in 4 games. So we're averaging over 200 yards a game. My guy has 13 touchdowns in 4 games. He's averaging over 3 touchdowns a game. This is crazy. And if you watch him run, the dude looks so smooth.
He's awesome. And our buddy Jared was up there this weekend.
Oh,
at
really?
The Boise State game. Yeah, he got pictures of the field and everything. He got to see him up front, close and personal. He's awesome, man. I will tell you, I've watched him. That dude's legit. I know what the knock's going to be.
What?
He plays in the Mountain West.
Anybody that says that is just going to be dumb. I don't care.
But that's why Marshall Faulk didn't win the Heisman.
Right, but here's what you do then. If you're really smart, you watch him one in UK, you say,
but
oh, well, he's averaging these insane numbers because he's so good, he's blowing everybody away.
Look.
So put him in the SEC, and he still has probably 600 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Look, all we know is the team that gets to draft him is very lucky.
They're going to be so happy.
They're going to be so happy.
And he's 5'9", 215-ish. Like, he is your perfect bowling ball, small because he'll hide behind the line to come out of holes, but big enough where he can hold up through a season. He's got speed. He's got quickness. And it's not talked about a whole lot just yet, but the dude has hands, too. He can catch out of the backfield. I don't know if he's great at it. I don't know if we've seen enough of that to say he's great at it, but he's capable, which is a big deal in today's NFL.
So I love that kid too. I'm glad you brought him up. He's been putting in work, and I would absolutely say, yeah, he's Heisman worthy. I just feel like he won't get that level because
you're right. Based on who I think it is right now, 3-horse race after 4 weeks, and somebody could still come out of the woodwork. So don't get me wrong. That's what's cool about the Heisman. But right now, I think it's Milroe. I think it's Ashton, and I think it's Travis Hunter.
Well, I think Cam Ward's in the conversation too.
I think he's in the conversation, but Miami is going to have to continue to. They're going to have to win out. They're going to have to go undefeated for him to.
He's just. I mean, his numbers are pretty crazy, so that's where I think he'll.
They are, but he's never going to have a signature win like Milroe. That's why I don't have him in this upper bracket of 3.
As a Miami fan, I agree with that because
good for you.
I know
fair.
They don't.
Cheers.
If they can get to the playoffs, I'm happy. They're not going to do anything, but I'll be happy.
So that's the kicker. He's not going to have that signature win like Milroe just had.
But
Ashton is putting up insane video game numbers. So I think what he's doing and watching him, he's in there. Travis Hunter is a different breed, and in my mind, it is the one true exception of where your team doesn't also have to be winning for you should be holding the trophy at the end of the year right now. What Travis Hunter
they are
is
winning.
doing,
They're 4-1.
Well,
they're 4-1, so they are winning.
I know, but to think Colorado's going to be there at the end of the year, I think we're getting.
If Travis Hunter was not on the Buffaloes, they'd be 0-5.
Well, probably. Yeah, I mean,
if Travis Hunter was not on the Buffaloes, they'd be 0-5.
He's playing something like 95% of the game of the snaps for the season, not just on one side of the ball or the other. 95% of all snaps within Colorado's football season this far, he has been on the field for.
I think
that's insane.
He makes plays on defense, but it's nothing like what he does on offense.
I disagree. I think if he was only playing cornerback right now, people would be saying he's the best cornerback in college football. That Superman interception he had last week, that's a Heisman moment in and of itself. That interception as a cornerback, if he was just a cornerback, would be worthy of putting him in the Heisman conversation.
Most people do say he's a top 5 corner regardless.
Now you're talking about he might be the best wide receiver in the country as well. Now there's a dude out in Missouri, and there's a couple other guys out there who are
really guy in Arizona.
Yes. So don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say he's just flat out the best, but you could probably argue he's the best wide receiver in the country. This has never been done. This is Ohtani level stuff we're talking about. We've seen guys play both sides of the ball and have an impact. We have not seen him play every snap on both sides of the ball and have an impact for the entire game. They've had moments, not dominate games. And what Travis Hunter is doing at the level he's doing it at, I don't care what anybody says. I personally believe he is your Heisman winner right now. If he does this all year, regardless of Colorado's record, I say he should win the award.
It's like watching Ohtani. Like, we just haven't seen it done before. And I think, unfortunately, I do feel like he's still going to get the Dion hate. And I don't think he's going to get it just because of that.
Well, there's a lot of hate. I mean, look who, and I'm not going to go through the list that have had to eat their crow already this year, but Richard Sherman was the last one. Came out talking about, I don't think he's an elite receiver. He should just stick to cornerback. He's never going to be able to do that in the NFL. He's a list. He is down the list of guys who have said that and eaten crow. He's just the latest one.
Sherman, have you not seen that guy's hands? Like, that dude catches everything. Everything. After playing so many snaps on defense.
Yeah.
Could you have done that at all? I think Sherman was a converted wide receiver.
And it's not just that he catches everything. If you watch, he's getting separation still. So he goes and plays defense and locks some dude up. And then he comes on the offensive side of the ball. And it's not that he's just catching the ball because he has great hands. He's getting separation. He's getting yards after the catch.
What's funny? They were, I think they were 15-point dogs to UCF.
14, 2 touchdowns.
And they
dogs,
rolled them.
And they smoked them. Number one rushing attack in the country at the time. Colorado basically shut that down. And Colorado was supposed to be super weak against the run. I'll give Dion, Colorado, the staff, Shador, everybody credit.
They sold
out.
Came
out and played.
They sold out against the run, forcing that quarterback to try to throw. And he made some good throws here and there, but he didn't have the consistency.
Colorado stepped up. They played really well. Good for them. Shador, I still think he's the best quarterback in the country. I believe, and like I said, I've said this and I'll continue to say it, I think Travis Hunter is the Heisman. If he plays at this level all season, regardless of Colorado's record, I just supposed to be the most outstanding player in college football. I don't know how you can say, no matter what happens throughout the year, that it won't be him if this is what he does all year.
I agree, man.
And then any dumbass NFL scout, executive, talent evaluator, head coach, whatever, if you do not allow this dude to do this in the NFL, you done already messed up and you wasted the pick.
Now, I will say, Shador is from what I've seen, I may not be perfect, but from what I've seen, that dude, when he's protected, can sling the football.
Well, take a step back. I think people are underselling the fact that he does that even when he's not protected, because most of the time that dude's making plays when he's not protected.
Right.
So he's basically doing what he's doing without protection or good protection. Now imagine what he would do if he had great protection.
Man, if you think Jalen Milroe is so good, if you put him behind Alabama's line where he's not getting touched, like,
I just don't know how people don't see that. Like that's what kind of drives me nuts, I think, about this whole Shedeur Sanders conversation, and why I think people can't take their own personal bias for the person or the social media
that's
guy
the problem
out of it.
His attitude, there's a lot to be desired.
People didn't like Deion in prime because of the same thing back in the day. No matter how good of a guy people said he was, they saw the persona.
I think Shedeur's probably a great teammate and a great guy. But I think he is in it for him, and I think Deion's in it for him, and I think that's caused some problems. And again, they've already got it out there. Like, yeah, I don't want my son going to some crappy organization, and we're not going to go play for you card.
Yeah,
and guess
Carolina, you better figure out Bryce Young.
Yeah, he ain't playing for Carolina.
I don't think any of the top dudes would want to play for Carolina right now. I think they'd all try to Eli Manning that shit.
He ain't playing for the Giants.
No, I don't know about the Giants. I think that would be interesting.
That organization has been so poorly run. I can't see him doing that.
I think I could see Shane losing his job, or Sheen, whatever the GM's name is. I think people still have a lot of respect for the Moras, though. I think they still have a lot of respect for the ownership. And that's where I think that could still be interesting. Remember, the Mannings like the Moras. If football royalty still signs off on that, it pulls some weight still. And Deion, the Sanders and the Mannings get along by all accounts, from what I've kind of heard over the years. So, there is. I think Carolina's out there for sure. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, Carolina's out. I'm actually on the Miami bandwagon. I think if Miami continues
that would be interesting.
Look as awful as they are, I think Deion will look at that and, like, Mike McDaniel, quarterback, offensive guy. I've got Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. I think he could do that in a heartbeat. So, all right, enough college football. NFL. Where you want to start? Where do you want to start this last weekend?
Let's do this. Let's try to do something a little different, and maybe we can kind of make it a little bit more of a standard, if you will, to get through our NFL conversations, because we rabbit hole a lot when it comes to the NFL.
We do.
And sometimes we don't necessarily get to discuss everything.
I'm not Chris Berman, okay? I can't get through in 3 minutes.
That
minutes.
fastest 2 minutes even the fastest 2 minutes turn into the fastest 3 minutes, right? So we're not totally out of the norm in that sense. Let's try this. Let's try to do a quick hit thought from the games from last week. Kind of one or two thoughts from every game that we can discuss a little bit, and then move into this week and kind of give a thought per game, if you will. Try to, just roughly a thought. And then we can discuss kind of what I believe we're seeing a shift back to normalcy, if you will, in offensive football. And we can discuss that a little bit more in depth. And then little power rankings. Roughly a quarter of the way through the season now. I think we can kind of have enough to kind of look at some power rankings. I know some different media outlets have put out power rankings now through the first quarter of the season, so I think we can kind of discuss that a little bit as well. What do you think?
All right. Yeah, let's run through it. All right. We had Thursday. We had Cowboys-Giants. I got to be honest. I'm kind of shocked the Cowboys didn't blow the Giants out like they normally do. Like, they normally boat race the Giants. Like, to me, that was crazy. And Daniel Jones actually looked pretty good. Which makes me think, like, are the Cowboys' defense that bad without Dan Quinn?
Look, I've said before, I think Daniel Jones has shown enough flashes to where there was some talent that you could run with, but the injuries are what would have just moved me off of him and gone away from. So I think giving him a true number one, which, look, Malik Neighbors is legit. That dude's a real deal. You give him a true number one finally. We all thought Daboll was a really good coach, kind of getting screwed by the GM and the talent on the team. They add Burns. They already had some pieces on defense. The team looks fairly competitive. Dallas has an insane amount of holes up the middle and now on the defensive line, and a glaring hole in the backfield on the offensive side with no running game.
No running game.
So I don't think it's a surprise. Dallas still just has more talent overall. They were able to get away from it. I think McCarthy's a dead man walking. I don't see how he's not.
Cheers on that one. He's absolutely a dead man walking. There's no way he makes it out of this alive.
Does Dallas make the playoffs? I was very secure in thinking based on their talent, they would still find a way to get to the playoffs. But now
we'll get to why we don't know if they make them.
We will get there in just a moment. And I did call this. I did say this team would be something you should pay more attention to. And Pinky said I'm out of my ever-living mind, which is a normal conversation for us.
We're not there yet.
But we'll get there. But
all right.
Dallas may be in trouble.
11 o'clock games. All right. Look, I'm going to say this right now, and this comes to our power rankings conversation in a moment. The Vikings are the number one team in football. They're the number one team in football. I hate saying it. I am not on the Darnold bandwagon, but they just keep winning. And they tried to let the Packers back in this game, which is kind of crazy. But
I don't know if you can necessarily say they let the Packers back in the sense that the Packers are a really good football team. So there is that. But I mean,
the Vikings are the. I didn't stutter, Blaster.
They were up
Vikings
28.
are the best team in football.
Was it 28-0? I think. And then they won 31-28.
Yeah.
They definitely took their foot off the gas. So, yeah, they let them back into an extent.
So
I told you there were two teams I told you at the beginning of the year, I believe, as we were kind of going through things, that I told you could be sneaky good. And you laughed at me, basically. And Minnesota was one of them. But that's because I had a lot of faith in what Sam Darnold was capable of with the talent that was already there.
I have Vikings at number one based on quality of wins.
Yeah, I mean, look who they beat.
That's why I have Vikings.
Three of their 4 wins. It's San Francisco, Green Bay, and
Texans.
And
they both raced the Texans.
Yeah.
So, and again, Giants we don't count, but like they've taken care of business. And Sam Darnold, if you're having an MVP conversation after 4 weeks, he's on the ballot. I don't want to say that, but he's on the ballot.
He has to be. And I'm not a Darnold guy, but he's on the ballot. He's on there. By the end of this season, he will force Pinky to eat some crow, even though Pinky continues to avoid it every week.
I probably will. Yeah. And again, if he does, that's awesome because then that makes a really great storyline. Because now it's like, how much does he ask the Vikings to pay him?
Not just that. Do they want to try and keep him then and let JJ sit another year? I mean, it gets real interesting with a lot of scenarios.
Trade JJ at that point, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Darnold's 27. For sure you could do that.
Right. All right.
Which is
fun for us to debate.
NFL organization, right?
Fun for us to debate at that point.
Yeah.
Bengals, Panthers. Bengals won. Panthers made it competitive.
Can we just say the Bengals have been the biggest disappointment this far in the season and move on? I mean, I think simple enough?
It's very similar to last season. They started off really slow.
They always start off slow, so I don't feel like this is necessarily anything new after the first 4 weeks.
That defense is bad, though. I did not expect their defense to be bad.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
All right. What else did we have in the 11 o'clock games? We had Jaguars, Texans. Texans had to pull it out at the end. I did not expect that. I expected them to pretty much destroy the Jaguars, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, what's funny is the Jags are bad, but they're still – I mean, you look up and down that roster on paper, and there's a lot of talent on that team. So I don't think we should necessarily expect them to ever get blown out, but I think they're going to have a really bad year. I think it's going to be really bad.
Yeah, Doug Peterson's getting fired.
Yeah. I'm talking like I feel like they could be in top 5 pick conversation bad by the end of the year.
Which may not be bad.
I mean, maybe not necessarily overall for the franchise with all the talent they have, new head coach going forward, but for what they were expected to be the last couple of years, it's bad.
Doug Peterson's getting fired. They definitely need some O-linemen for sure.
I think Texans are kind of like we thought. We didn't think they would take a step back, but the schedule would be such that they would be fighting for a playoff spot.
And this is one of the tough ones. The AFC South, when they play each other, weird shit happens.
Always. I mean, most divisions in football, but still, yeah. So Houston's kind of about what they thought. Really talented, but they're gonna show, like, if you weren't looking under like a level deeper than just the surface, you would think they're struggling. But they're not really. They're still kind of finding themselves and learning. Young team, growing.
Steelers, Colts.
Now, I heard you say, and I was golfing all morning, so I didn't get to see a lot of these games. I had to go back and watch recordings and highlights and things of that nature to catch back up. But you told me Justin Fields played basically bad for 3 quarters and then good for 1.
He just looked meh.
What I heard from a lot of people was he actually played really good the whole game. The defense kind of let them down the first half of the game. And I didn't get to watch the game, so I can't necessarily comment, which I'm kind of bummed about, because from what I've heard a lot of people say and what I would gather from what I did see from highlights, the Steelers might have been willing to unlock or open up Justin Fields a little bit more, and they found another level to their offense that could be a big deal going forward.
I don't see it from a man. Like, he didn't play bad. He definitely kept his hold on the starting job. But to me, he's still like the average quarterback. Like, it was the Colts. It was the ghost of Joe Flacco again that beat him.
But that was on the defense. That's not on him.
But if he scores more points in the first 3 quarters, this is not an issue.
But didn't he? Well, I mean,
correct me if I'm wrong. It only became a game in the fourth quarter.
Didn't he only have wasn't it only 8 incompletions? He threw for over 300 yards. He ran for a couple.
He's keeping it. And again, this may not be his fault. They're keeping it really simple.
Okay. And
which might be the offensive coordinator holding him back instead of letting him play.
Could we possibly maybe start talking about it being a smart coaching staff, knowing there's a lack of talent, like true difference-making talent around him outside of George Pickens?
I mean, there's really no offensive talent at all. The line's not great. In fact, I would say his situation is worse in Pittsburgh than it was in Chicago. They just have a better defense in Pittsburgh.
And smarter coaching, obviously, because they can get
and you could maybe say that the opponents they've played plays into their winning record at the moment.
Sure.
They don't win. I don't think they win that Chargers game if Justin Herbert doesn't get hurt. Once he got hurt, it was all downhill. Once they brought in Stick, I think Easton Stick is still the backup there. Once they brought him in, they were done.
I think Heineke actually came in and played.
Oh, maybe it was Heineke. Whatever. They were done. So,
but they did beat Atlanta.
That's a good win.
Unfortunately, then you lose to Indy, and like you said, the ghost of Joe Flacco. Your defense doesn't play the way it should have.
Now, Shane Steichen, I feel like he's a good offensive coach.
Yep.
I feel like Flacco, again, it's like 2 different players. You got Anthony Richardson, who's athletic and moves, and you've got a statue in Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco can throw the ball.
And they do have some weapons. I mean, they're not devoid of talent. Pittman, I think, is a solid receiver. He may not be a true 1, but he's a solid receiver. Downs has shown he can run some routes and catch the ball. They do have Jonathan Taylor.
So if you were going to release Justin Fields and see, like, what is this guy going to be? This is the week to do it. Because they're playing a defense that's not playing well, may not have 2 of their best players. This is the week to do it.
Who are they playing?
We'll talk about that. They're playing the Cowboys.
We'll get there. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Playing the Cowboys.
We'll get there. Okay, continue.
All right, so we had that. We got Saints-Falcons. That was a hell of a game.
Good game.
Falcons kicking a 58 or 59-yarder to win.
Yeah, it was a good game. I think the biggest storyline and takeaway right now is this a situation where Raheem Morris is just trying to protect a player and Pitts is actually a really good football player? You're just not seeing it in the fantasy world, if you will. because he's just willing to be a straight team guy and do whatever is needed, and we never quite realized that, and we think that's why his talent is being wasted? Or is he a bust? Is it fair to start having that conversation?
I still think it's just the way that they use him. I don't feel like they use him correctly.
I'm not necessarily saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying, is that conversation fair now? Has it been long enough to say that's a fair conversation, especially after Raheem Morris's comments after the game?
I think you can have it.
I mean, they only targeted him 3 times.
Right. They don't scheme him open at all.
So is it scheme, or is it because he's just not that good and they don't want to admit that they wasted a 4th overall pick yet?
Now
that's kind of what I'm wondering.
When there's defenders near him, he does not make the tough catches that you'd like to see him make.
Have they even given him enough chances really at that to show that?
Again, when you only target a guy 3 times and you don't get him involved, it's hard to get that momentum.
And it feels like he's shown enough flashes over his first couple of years now to where you're like, there is talent there. So what are we doing? But for whatever reason, then he just doesn't get the ball. So it does make you wonder, like, are they not scheming him because he just isn't as talented, or he can't figure it out like they thought he would? Or is it just really lack of using your talent, which we didn't expect from this coaching staff?
I think if you put him with a good offensive coach, he would explode.
You do wonder. Next.
So, Eagles, Buccaneers, real quick. Baker is balling against everybody except for the Broncos. I don't know.
Right, yeah. Good for you, Baker. That offense looks pretty solid. I think it's only going to get better with Bucky Irving getting more touches now, to be honest with you. On the flip side, I think Sirianni's done. I think just the comments alone from Hurts after the game or after practice or whatever it was the other day, when they were asked, like, on the bye week, are you guys going to get together and find a way to get right? And he's like, he said basically, like, we have our moments. He looked like he was done dealing with whatever Sirianni's shit is, or his stick, or whatever.
Let's be honest. When you don't have A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, which is really what your offense is made of, it's run the ball, play action with Hurts. Those 2 guys are open down the field. Neither one of those guys were out there. You had Goddard, you had Barkley. I don't even know who else is on that team receiver-wise. That's going to be hard for anybody. So I'm not playing a lot of stock in that. But that defense, like, where is it?
I think body language says a lot. I think Jalen Hurts' body language around Sirianni, and when asked about Sirianni, I think it takes on a different feeling. It looks like it's a heavier feeling.
Right.
I think there is an issue there. When you have an issue between your quarterback and your head coach, there's bad things.
If we're talking coaches on the hot seat, Sirianni's on there because, again, they moved off Peterson like a year after he won the Super Bowl.
Quickly.
So they're not going to wait around.
So I think that's the bigger storyline there for me, which could be interesting to see.
We had the other early slate. We had Rams and Bears, and Caleb Williams pulled one out. This was kind of a weird game for both teams.
The Bears are a mess. Nothing has changed. I still believe, and I don't know how.
Let's just be honest. If Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were in this game, it's not a game.
Well, that's where I'm getting to. I still think the Bears would have been better off keeping Fields and using those picks differently. And I think that says a lot about the coaching staff and the GM, more so than it does the players and the talent on the field. On the other side of the ball, now the Rams are so thin and devastated from injury, and we said at the beginning of the year they couldn't afford for that to happen if they wanted to get to the playoffs, and it did happen, and they're hurting because of it. They are one of the most talented teams in the NFL at the top level. But if any of that top level goes, they get hurt quickly.
Let's be honest, though. Coming back to Ryan Poles. If you had not taken Williams, you traded that pick, and you continue to build your roster, I still think they'd be pretty good. I agree with you. I think they could have made some hay with Fields with what they had put around. But if you didn't, and Williams was really awesome somewhere else, I feel like you would still get shit on. So
maybe, but I
feel like he was in a tough situation.
You have to know that you can win without the best quarterback in the league. One, like you can win a championship without the best quarterback in the league. It's been proven year in and year out. Even though Mahomes, Brady, they do win theirs, there's still guys that win in between there. So that's first of all. Second of all, and I think the even crazier thing is when you have your number one receiver publicly, which to me means the locker room is saying privately, why would we get rid of this quarterback and go draft a rookie? You should be listening to that a little bit closer. And I feel like it fell on deaf ears because the GM thinks he's smarter than everybody else and is building this epic roster that has yet to be shown as epic. And I think he's unwilling to admit he made a giant mistake in the head coach hire and doesn't want to go away from that. And then the head coach can't figure out how to actually be a head coach and develop anything and isn't even being good at what he's supposed to be good at, which is the defensive side of the ball. Chicago's a mess, a giant mess. And I don't see it changing anytime soon, unfortunately. And it looks like there's a lot of frustration within that team. Now it's the NFL. Things have changed so quickly sometimes, and that's the beauty of it, that they could be right back in the playoff hunt and then somehow even go win a Super Bowl this year and everybody could play really well. So who knows? But right now, I think Chicago looks like they're just as messy as they were last year, maybe even in a worse situation. The Rams, like we said, they're thin. Things don't look like they're getting better anytime soon, and the Rams are probably not going to find a way to get to the playoffs because of their depth and their amount of injuries. Pinky, where we head next? Came back just in time.
Yeah, sorry,
for just a little bit.
I got the alert that the battery charger's low. I've got like 37 minutes left, so we gotta run through these.
We will.
Broncos Jets was the other early morning game.
This is what I'll say about this. Two things. First of all, I now am going to say that I still don't think the Broncos are a talented team, but I think they're 2 wins away now from where Pinky already had them, from effing around and finding out and making the playoffs. And cool, your team won. Our team won. They made the playoffs. Yay. But it's like the Tim Tebow year. Like, you didn't actually think they were going to win a Super Bowl. And because of that, it doesn't get you the draft pick that you can really get the best talent on the board. Not that you can't luck into talent and still be good, but it just doesn't quite do what you could. And I still think if you had torn it all down a little bit more and gotten a lot more draft picks and gone for a 2 or 3 year plan rather than trying to rebuild on the run, you'd be in a better situation long term. But it is fun to see what they're doing. I think they're probably the best defense in the league outside of Minnesota right now. It might be 1A, 1B kind of thing there between the two.
That's a conversation. That's a
Is,
conversation.
absolutely. And I still think Sean Payton's out of his league. That offense just looks atrocious. It just looks bad. Now, there's a lack of talent, so I understand that. But I would still think somebody who's supposed to be this offensive genius, this offensive guru, would be able to scheme things up to look a little bit smoother. So not necessarily score more points, but just to look a little bit smoother.
So
and it
you may not be wrong, but I will at least throw in at least the first 4 weeks of the season, these defenses have been pretty damn good that we're playing. The next couple weeks when our defenses that we're playing are not as good, I think that'll be more of a telling sign of if you're right or not.
I agree with you to an extent, but what did Knicks have to end the first half? -3 yards?
7.
-7. That's bad.
And again,
that doesn't show week to week.
If it's not pouring rain like it was, I don't think that's the case. Like, it was a whole different level. Even Aaron Rodgers didn't have a whole lot of yards in the first half.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to say. Point 2. Robert Saleh should just be fired now because I fully believe he has zero voice in that locker room with anyone. And I don't look, I'm a big Aaron guy. I know a lot of people will say, well, yeah, it's because of him and his fault, and he's come in and he's poisoned the locker room and this, that, and no, I think what Aaron Rodgers did was just wake up everybody to how ridiculous Robert Saleh truly is, and how terrible of a head coach he is. And that's coming from me and also Pinky, who thought he was a really great hire for the Jets. He could do a lot of great things. I no longer think he's a good head coach. So, maybe he's a good defensive coordinator still, but he is a bad head coach.
Well, that just comes back to what we've talked about a lot of guys. There's some guys that are just offensive coordinators. There's some guys that are just defensive coordinators. Know what you're good at, and he's probably overwhelmed being the head coach. And it's sometimes you gotta try it and fail and realize like, hey, that's not for me. So yeah, I don't think there's any way he makes it out of this season, short of them making a Super Bowl. Like he's not making it
Super Bowl.
He's not even making it out of this season. But for me, Broncos defense. No one picked the Broncos to win. They brought it. The defense was on another level, and again, I think the rain played a part for both teams, and we just played tougher and grittier. Like we wanted that game, and in the fourth quarter, when we needed a drive, we got it twice.
I mean, you say all that, but Greg Zuerlein makes that kick and the Jets walk away winners.
That Jets defense has so much talent on it, the Broncos should have never moved the ball, period.
I'm not disagreeing with you there. But again, that's why it goes back to I think Robert Saleh is an awful head coach. And then, let's be honest, the comments after the game where he's like, maybe we have to look at removing the Caden and Aaron Rodgers comes out and goes, I mean, that's one way to look at it, or you're just a dumbass and guys should do their job.
I have my cadence. My cadence has been the same. I don't know why there's 5 false start penalties.
I mean, literally, if you can't read between the lines and realize Aaron Rodgers just basically called the head coach a dumbass, like, I don't know what else to say. Like, New York's a mess right now, and Robert Saleh is a lot of the reason, I think.
And they're not beating – I don't think they're beating the Vikings this week. All right, 3 games left. We're going to do this real quick. Titans-Dolphins. I don't know why anybody would have watched this game.
Without Tua. Titans aren't a good team. Move.
Dolphins should lose the rest of the games. Don't bring Tua back. Draft Shador. Good to go.
Interesting thought.
Bills-Ravens. Ravens boat racing the Bills. Was this the Bills just feeling themselves?
I think it's a little bit of the Bills feeling themselves. I think it's a little bit of Ravens kind of finding what they believe they can be. I think these are right now, personally, I think those are the 2 best teams in the NFL.
I felt like I'm like, well, the Ravens didn't look like this against the Raiders, and they didn't look like this against the Chiefs, but they did look this good against the Cowboys and the Bills. Bills, this is the first bad game they played. Like, it just felt weird. I didn't watch it. I was doing other stuff, but
I did see this game. And it wasn't as lopsided as the score made it seem either. Really inopportune turnover from Josh Allen that completely changed momentum in the swing. Some other plays here and there that were kind of wonky. First play of the game for Baltimore, Derrick Henry breaks off an 85-yarder at 22 miles an hour. 87 at
longest run in Baltimore history.
Kind of a fluky game a little bit. I do think, I know you said, and we'll get to it, Minnesota power rankings is number 1. I still think overall, though, the 2 best teams in the NFL right now are Baltimore and Buffalo, from what I've seen thus far.
So do we just want to touch on what games are the most important this weekend?
I mean, we're never right, but yeah.
So I think I think it would be a miss to not mention the Commanders. Awesome game by them.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that game. You didn't even mention it.
I don't know why I scrolled past it. Jayden Daniels is on the MVP list. He's playing amazing. He has more scoring drives than incompletions right now. We've never seen that. He is hot, and
I told you they could be sneaky to win the division.
You did say that. They are fun to watch right now.
Yeah, they are.
They are fun to watch. So if you're looking for a game, you're like, find the Commanders, watch that game. They're fun to watch.
You want to talk about a blueprint, how to handle a rookie quarterback? And another thing I've said, and you were kind of on the fence with this. You were a little torn because you kind of like him, but you weren't sure what he did in Atlanta was good enough. I said Dan Quinn was a solid and a really good head coach. I actually liked the hire, and people thought it was weird you go defensive and then draft the quarterback. But I said I think Cliff Kingsbury is a great OC mind and will be really great with a young quarterback. It is proving to be a very successful blueprint, a la what Houston did. Having a defensive head coach that knows how important it is to have a great offensive coordinator mind to develop a young quarterback, and what D'Amico Ryan did, bringing in Swinick. I'm not even saying that right. Is it Swinick? Slovic. Sorry. As to OC down there, knowing what he can do, what tree he came from through McVay. Obviously Kingsbury's a great offensive mind. He's got some head coaching experience. He wasn't necessarily a bad head coach, just not necessarily great. But you did see he did good things with Kyler Murray when Kyler was on the field.
He was head coach of Arizona. So
that's why it's kind of like, we don't really know if Kingsbury's a great head coach or not. But he's obviously a great offensive mind. And the blueprint that Washington is doing with Daniels right now should be what every NFL franchise, if you're going to go get a young quarterback, you should look at everything that Washington is doing with Daniels and know that your quarterback may not be able to replicate it. But just the fact that they started off slow, you could tell they talked about it. We're not giving him the full playbook yet. The season, he started off kind of slow with the pass attempts, what they were allowing. And every week they open it up a little more. Let's see what he can do a little more. Let's see what he can take on. This dude's the real deal. Pinky and I talked about it. I said Caleb Williams won't be a flop. I think he'll be a really good quarterback if he's taken care of the right way. But Pinky and I both said we would, if we had to choose, we're probably taking Daniels first overall. That's who we thought was the more talented guy with the higher upside. He's showing some crazy things right now.
We did say that.
Agreed. Fun to watch.
I like his smile. I like his attitude. Good guy. I'm rooting for him. I would go get a Daniels jersey right now if the Commanders jerseys weren't so awful. Like, I find their jerseys are just not good. All right. Bucks Falcons is Thursday night. I find this interesting division game. Do we get the Bucks continue to keep playing well? They can be up and down, obviously, as we saw.
If the Denver game was an aberration and everything else is who they are, the Bucks roll this game because I don't think Atlanta has any idea who.
And they're the underdogs.
I know.
They're 1.5-point dogs right now.
And we thought Atlanta would win this division. They don't look any different than they did last year.
They still don't know how to use Bijan.
They have no idea that they have a bunch of talent on that offensive side of the ball, and they can't figure out how to use it. Whereas Tampa Bay and Baker's like, hey, I got 2 Pro Bowl caliber all-pro receivers that I'm going to get the ball to, and we'll figure out how to run the ball. Bucky Irving looks like he's going to be the guy and explosive. I do like Tampa in this game.
We got Jets-Vikings in London. Love that.
Based on the way the Jets look like a mess, they can't seem to figure it out either. Garrett Wilson, why can't him and Rodgers figure it out together? I thought that would be an explosive combo.
I have no idea. Now,
Darnold, Addison, JJ Jetta, O'Connell is that. I think the Vikings look really good this week, and it may not be a blowout by any means. I think the Jets are still super talented. I like Minnesota in this game to go 5-0, and we all know how I feel about my boy Darnold.
Vikings are 2.5-point favorites. Hammer that.
I like that.
Bills Texans 3-1. It's in Houston. Vegas doesn't know. They've got Bills as 1-point favorites, which tells me that Vegas doesn't know.
The reason I would like Buffalo is I think they get their run game going again a little bit more than they did this last week. I think James Cook has another big game, and then the play action off of that. I think Houston's defense is just kind of still young and finding themselves a little bit. I think Buffalo takes advantage of that. Although Buffalo's defense is going to be missing Von Miller now, 4-game suspension, that will hurt them a little bit.
I will say, I hate that in the middle of the season. If you're charging someone for something that happened in the off season, suspend them before the season. Don't let them play 4 games and then suspend them. Like I hate that.
It is weird and uncommon. It's not usually how it works.
They did it to there's another player they did it to as well. I can't remember his name. He got the same thing, 4-game suspension. Do it before the season or do it after. Once the season started, no, don't do that to a team because they didn't have any time to prepare or plan for that. So
I get it.
All right, and then the last one I think that is important to discuss: Cowboys Steelers.
I think this is important and says a lot for two reasons. And I think you kind of alluded to it earlier. I think this is the game you kind of let Justin Fields see. And I think you do it for two reasons. One, Dallas's defense is just devastated. So you really get your run game going, you get your play action, you let Justin Fields start opening it up, and you see what he can do because of how just wiped out Dallas's defense is. Two, I think you do it for another reason. And I think you do it all game, regardless of, if he finally shows you, it gives you a true baseline of what he's capable of. Really call an offense and open it up like you would for a top-level quarterback and see what he's truly capable of.
Yes.
Because you're going to know real quick if he shows the flashes, if he can make enough throws, even if he throws a couple interceptions. If he has a couple touchdowns with a couple interceptions, and the interceptions aren't just awful, then it can give you an idea that you can really start moving things in the right direction.
So,
if he does that and has just an awful game, the offense looks terrible, he does not make good reads, he does what everybody thinks he is, if you will, and not what I think he is, then I think it shows you, okay, this is not a long-term solution. I think you're right, Pinky. I think this is his baseline game, his barometer game. And I think if they do that, it can tell them where their season can go.
So they've been holding him back. And you can see that when you watch the games. And even as a Justin Fields hater, as you might say, I can say they've been holding him back. If you want to find out if he's the long-term guy, you got to unleash him.
Yep.
And you've got to do it. And if you don't unleash him against the upper echelon quarterbacks, you're going to be on the short end of the stick quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. Like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, like Dallas is going to score some points, even on the Steelers defense. It's going to happen.
Yep.
If you're going to try to keep serve, you're going to have to let that guy play and throw the football. So if you want to find out, this is the perfect, like for most of the season, you got to let this guy play because you will find out by the end of the season, do we have a guy that, yes, we can win some games on if we keep handcuffs on him and we run the football and we play good defense? Sure. But are you going to beat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson?
Or do we have a guy that's a difference maker or that can turn into a difference maker? Can we develop him into what he was drafted as, right? Like that's really the test. And with the decimation of Dallas's defense, they're not going to get a better opportunity this year to open it up and see.
And I will say one thing that the Steelers are missing tremendously right now is Jaylen Warren. Najee Harris is not it. He's not it.
See, I don't agree with you for the sense that I think Jaylen Warren and Najee are one and the same. One's a little bit better at something than the other, and one's a little bit better at something than the other. I think Najee's a better runner. I think Jaylen Warren's a little bit better in the pass game. I think they're half dozen the other overall. The problem is they still don't have a good offensive line. Like it just is not a good offensive line. They don't get movement forward in the run game a lot of times. Guys are getting hit at the line of scrimmage most of the times, and that puts you in a bad spot all the time in your run game, regardless of who your running back is. I think the bigger problem, personally for me, I think letting Deontay Johnson go was a huge mistake.
Trading him was a
you keep him in
bad idea.
And then Freiermuth, who is a capable tight end. I think now that passing game takes some of the weight off of the offensive line to then be able to run the ball a little better. But when you basically only have Pickens and Freiermuth can't go out in pass protection a lot because he's having to block, that people can tee up on the run game, and then it makes it even worse than it could have been. So to me, I think that was the bigger mistake.
So,
but we'll see.
The other game that matters for us is the Raiders Broncos. It's throwback week. They're wearing the throwbacks, the blue helmet.
So sick.
It looks so good. And I'm going to say, without Devontae Adams, he ain't playing this week.
No.
Broncos are going to win this game.
Broncos
are going to win this game.
No. I'm not going to say it. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. That just feels like if I say it, Pinky, it's going to be really bad. So I'm not saying it.
What did I say? The one thing about the Raiders, and I told it to what's his name that jumps on every once in a while, Captain Jack, good guy, hardcore Raiders fan. He kept harping on the Raiders. We have not beat the Las Vegas Raiders. They are 8-0 against the Broncos. But what is the one thing they don't have since they've been 8-0 against the Broncos? He's not there no more. Who's not there no more?
Derek Carr?
Josh Jacobs.
Oh, Josh Jacobs. Okay.
Josh Jacobs killed the Broncos.
I'm not talking. This feels like a giant trap game for me to open my mouth, the curse kick in. I'm just not saying anything, Pinky.
I appreciate you doing that.
It feels like
the Broncos are going to win. Cheers. The Broncos are going to win. And again, I just feel like Devontae Adams wants out. That defense, Max Crosby plays. He doesn't play. The rest of the defense is not playing well. This is going to – I feel like Antonio Pierce may get fired by the end of the year. Like, I feel like it's starting to unravel, and it might not be his fault. They've kind of
very rarely is it the head coach's fault in Raiders world. Oakland, LA, or Las Vegas.
All right. I said my Broncos piece. Clayton, hopefully you come back and catch that. All right. Power rankings. We got to go quick. I think I have it won't tell me how many minutes I have left, but we'll keep rolling until I get out. All right. Power rankings. I did get PFF's power rankings. I mean,
okay.
They all have power rankings, right?
Yeah, that works.
They all have power rankings. They have the Chiefs number 1.
Okay. I don't hate it.
I think it's debatable.
I can understand why you would not put them number 1. I can also understand why you would put them number 1.
Now, so I would probably put them number 2.
Behind Minnesota.
So they have.
I mean, Minnesota's 4-0 based on who they beat. I like Minnesota at 1 with you. I'd go Chiefs 2.
They have Chiefs, Lions, Vikings. I would put Vikings number 1, Chiefs number 2. Is that bad? Can Chiefs Kingdom come in and look, you're Super Bowl champs, you're back to back. I get it, but every game you struggled. Every game you've barely won. They're all 7-point games. It's. Come on, guys.
They played some really good teams.
Whereas in the Vikings have rolled.
It's not like they've played bad teams, though. So that's why we're keeping this in mind. That's why we're saying you could have them 1, you could have them 2. We're not going to be mad either way, but we do like Minnesota at the top.
I will say Chiefs defense is still a top 5 defense. That's why they've won these games. If their defense was not very good, it wouldn't be very good. So PFF has Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Bucks, Bills, Texans. Now,
Bills and Ravens round up my top 5 personally.
Right. I don't know how the Ravens aren't 4.
I mean, put the Bills 4, the Ravens 5.
They lost to the Chiefs, which again, very close game.
That they actually had won.
I guess the Ravens.
A toe lost that game for the Ravens against the Chiefs.
Well, hold on. That would have tied. They could have kicked the extra point and tied.
Well, okay, yeah,
they
fine. And then we'll see what happens from there if you want.
Right.
You're right. My bad. You're right there. But still,
But then
Ravens and Bills round up the top 5. I don't know how you don't have Ravens and Bills top 5.
They had a 10-point lead to the Raiders. I think that's what's pulling them down. The Ravens are at 11 on this PFF list.
No.
Mm-mm. I think they're higher than 11. I don't know if I could put them higher than the Bucks, Bills, or Texans at the moment. But I can definitely put them higher than the Steelers.
So this is what I would say. Everything I've seen this season, if you put the Ravens on a neutral field against any of those 3 teams, they beat them. So I just, regardless of how those other teams are playing and how they've looked, I still think the Ravens are a better team.
They have the top 10: Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Bucks, Bills, Texans, Steelers, 49ers, Commanders, Packers, Ravens.
I mean, I understand where they're coming from based on PFF being based on season stats and things of that nature. Wins, losses, points scored, all that good stuff.
I mean, the majority of the top 10
eye test alone is going to tell you the Commanders are not better than the Ravens.
So right now, the only team in the top 10 that's 2-2 is the 49ers.
Right. So name 6 through 10 again.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Commanders and the Packers are 2-2. Well, sorry. The 49ers and the Packers are 2-2, and they're in the top 10.
Yeah. Give me 6 through 10 again.
It's Texans are 6.
Yeah.
Steelers are 7.
Yeah.
49ers are 8. Commanders are 9. Packers are 10.
Yeah. I mean, I understand where they're coming from. I'm not. The Steelers could mess around and win the division. I'm not going to lie. There is a possibility there with that defense, and if Justin Fields. And now again, it's a big if. Justin Fields has to be able to go out there and be a quarterback. He can't be the bad side of a game manager and think they're going to win the division.
Has to continue doing what he's doing, racking up wins before they get to their second half.
Right.
Their second half is brutal.
But that's what I mean. By the time that second half rolls around, he has to be playing quarterback. You can't be game managing him anymore if you want to get through that second half.
I mean, they play. I think they play all 6 of their division games in the back half.
It's bad. It's ugly for them. Yeah. So, but they're good enough with that defense, and if Justin Fields can be a not necessarily a superstar, but on that trajectory, if you will,
so
then it makes up for some of their lack on offensive talent. And yes, Pittsburgh could be really good. I don't think they're going to finish the season better than Baltimore, though. Like, I get this is the quarter way through the season, but still, I'm taking numbers and an eye test to say who's the top for me.
The only
the Commanders and the Steelers over Baltimore right now, just based on record, is crazy.
All right. So I have an issue at 12 and 16. The Eagles are 12.
Okay.
At 2-2. The Seahawks are 16 at 3-1.
Yeah, that's wild because after watching what the Seahawks have done to start this season and the game they just had against Detroit.
Would you say the Seahawks are better than the Falcons?
Yep.
The Eagles?
I don't know if I'd say they're better than the Eagles, but I would say they're both really good teams that should be in the top 10.
The Saints?
They're better than the Saints.
And the Broncos?
Yeah.
The Broncos are at 15.
And Seattle beat the Broncos.
Right. To me, I don't see how the Seahawks – to me, the Seahawks should be at 12. And the Eagles, if you put them anywhere, 13, 14, or 15, I'm fine with that. There's no way the Seahawks at 3-1. And again, that Lions team Monday night, like, they were on it. That offense was just like they were on it.
Yeah, and you could argue they got a favorable call on DK Metcalf that should have been offensive pass interference. You could also argue DK Metcalf caught that 2-point conversion.
He did catch that 2-point conversion. I don't know why they didn't get that.
Why it wasn't replayed in the booth. So you could say Detroit got a little bit of home field cooking to win that game even. If you wanted to argue that, I would hear you. I wouldn't just dismiss it. You know what I mean? So
Seahawks
Seattle, I think Seattle's a top 10 team right now.
If you put them in over the Packers, I don't hate it at the moment. Packers are at 10.
I'd have them over Washington too.
Those last 3 games for Washington are pretty. Now, again, the teams they've played, it's debatable. It's debatable, and that's what we do. We debate.
We do. But to have them at 16 is a joke.
The rest of it. So
at 16, you're saying Seattle isn't even a playoff team,
right?
What?
Let's debate this real quick. The last 5. Last 5, 28 through 32.
Okay.
Yeah. Dolphins at 28.
Okay.
Browns at 29.
Okay.
Patriots at 30.
Okay.
Panthers at 31.
Okay.
Jaguars at 32.
Ooh. So one of these is not like the other. 4 of those teams, I think, don't have a quarterback. I think the Jags and Trevor Lawrence, I don't think he's as bad as he's looked. I never thought he was an insane generational talent to begin with, so I'm not expecting an insanely high ceiling for him. But I think he is being screwed over by coaching at this point. I don't think Doug Peterson knows what he's doing, unfortunately. And that's based on the way the overall team has looked, not just the offense, that defense, everything. Like, they just look like a complete mess. And that usually goes back to there is no voice at the top, for me anyways. The Raiders are dysfunction upon dysfunction. The Browns are dysfunction upon dysfunction. The Panthers are dysfunction upon dysfunction. What do all 3 of those have in common? Terrible ownership. So there's that. What was the last one? Who was the last one?
So it's Jaguars are the very worst. And
I know. But
I think I would have.
There's another team. I've named 4 of the 5. Who's the 5th team I'm leaving off there? Why am I forgetting?
Dolphins.
Browns. That's the one that's interesting because Dolphins with Tua are a playoff team. I think it shows how good Tua is and Mike McDaniels. I think they are so in sync with play calling and things of that nature. They fit each other perfectly to an extent to where Tua knows how to get that talent the ball. Offense looks good. I think what's really getting exposed right now is how bad the Dolphins defense is.
Well, let's be honest. If any team loses their starter, they're probably going to be pretty bad, right? For the majority of teams.
Yeah.
I feel like that's why Dolphins are rated that low.
But they're a playoff team with Tua.
Right.
So I don't think this is as much as we lost our starting quarterback situation. We don't have a backup as much as it is. I think that defense is really bad.
So do the Dolphins, depending on what's happening with Tua, do you reach out and grab Russell? Do you go out and grab Zach Wilson? Do you go out and try to grab?
Oh no, we lost Pinky. And this is what's terrible about the NFL and the business. As much as I hate to say it, because I do like Tua. I don't think he's the best quarterback in the league, but I think you could win a Super Bowl with him in the right situation. I think that defense is awful. The Dolphins' defense is bad. And from a business perspective, I think what the Dolphins need to do at this point is, you almost kind of take the season. If you know Tua isn't coming back this year and you're not going to be in a situation where you can get to the playoffs, I think you have to let the season go. I think you basically punt the entire season away if you know Tua's never going to be able to come back healthy. Even if he does come back healthy, I think based on his concussion history now and the fact that it's never going to go away, I think you almost have to move on. As much as I hate to say it, that contract's crazy. It's hard to do, but if you feel like you can put yourself in a position to be a top 5 pick this year, with the amount of quarterback talent that's probably coming out, Ewers, Sanders, if you think Carson Beck's legit, Jalen Milroe, I think you almost have to take one of those guys in the top 5 and hope you can move forward with your franchise from there. I don't think you can move forward with Tua anymore because those concussions they only get worse from here. It's not like that he's going to find some magical cure and get better. They only get worse. And I don't.
Yeah, still gonna pay him $122 million or something like that.
And that's the kicker. But I think you kind of have to at this point, or you at least draft. You do what Atlanta did. You do what Green Bay did.
All right, buddy. Well, I think that's it for now.
You take the heir apparent. So Pinky's done. He's got to go. We're probably not going to get a final thought from him. We love the dude.
Yeah, I'm out.
All right. Football's in full swing. We love everything. My final thought, we didn't get to touch on it, but we will. I think you're seeing a regression back to norm in the sense that offenses are no longer going to be these continuous video game numbers. And we'll talk about that more in the future and kind of why and how and things of that. But to everyone out there, you know it. We appreciate you. We can't thank you enough for supporting us in any way that you do. You want to talk about something. You want to hear something. You want to come chop it up, whatever. Let us know. Plenty of social media outlets. You can find us on all of them. Sports Nonsense and Whiskey. Look us up. Do not take those moments with your loved ones for granted. Cherish them. Take advantage of them. Loved ones, inner circle, whatever you might not consider. Always find those moments and use them. Even if it means you're not going to be hanging out with us. We won't be mad about it. We appreciate everyone. Until next Tuesday, we're out. Peace. Cheers.
We're out. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame.